What was your family's most creative punishment? My father believed that women who misbehaved needed to lose a tooth for every offense. By the time I turned 18, my mother was missing half her mouth, and my older sister could barely chew solid food anymore. Dad kept the pliers in a special wooden box on the mantle, like they were something to be proud of. He'd inherited them from his father, who'd inherited them from his father before that. 4 generations of keeping our women in line, he'd say while polishing the metal until it gleamed. My brothers would nod along like this was completely normal, while us girls stayed silent because speaking up counted as misbehavior. The rules for what counted as misbehavior changed depending on Dad's mood. Burning dinner was always 1 tooth. Talking back was 2 teeth. Looking at him wrong when he was drunk could be 3 teeth depending on how drunk he was. Mom had lost her first tooth on their wedding night for crying too loudly. She'd lost 6 more over the years for various infractions like asking for grocery money or suggesting they visit her parents for Christmas. My sister Claire lost her first tooth at 13 for wearing lipstick she'd gotten from a friend at school. Dad had spotted the faint pink residue even after she tried to wipe it off in the bathroom. He'd called all of us into the living room for the ceremony like he always did. My brothers held her arms while Dad got his pliers, and Mom just stood there with tears rolling down her face because crying silently wasn't considered misbehavior, but trying to intervene was worth at least 2 teeth. I learned to be invisible after watching what happened to Claire. Never spoke unless spoken to directly. Never made eye contact. Never did anything that could be interpreted as defiance. But perfection was impossible in our house because Dad would find reasons to punish us, even when we'd done nothing wrong. He'd claim we'd given him a look or had an attitude in our voice that only he could detect. Mom tried to protect us in small ways without directly defying him. She'd warn us when he was in a particularly bad mood so we could hide in our rooms. She'd take blame for things we'd done, hoping he'd be satisfied with punishing just her. By the time I was 16, she was missing 12 teeth and could barely eat anything harder than soup. She covered her mouth when she talked and never smiled anymore. My sister Claire lost 4 more teeth over the next few years. 1 for coming home 5 minutes past curfew. 1 for getting a B on her report card instead of straight A's. 2 for refusing to quit her after-school job when Dad decided she was getting too independent. She started developing a lisp from the gaps in her mouth, and kids at school called her a hockey player because of all the missing teeth. The ritual was always the same. Dad would announce the infraction at dinner, then make us all gather in the living room. The guilty party would sit in the special chair they'd inherited along with the pliers. My brothers would hold her shoulders. Dad would make a speech about maintaining order and respecting authority while heating the pliers over a candle flame to sterilize them. Then he'd reach into her mouth while she tried not to scream because screaming was another tooth. I made it to 17 without losing any teeth, which Dad said was suspicious. No woman is that well behaved, he'd mutter while staring at me during dinner. You're hiding something. He started inventing infractions just to have an excuse. I'd apparently looked at him disrespectfully even though I hadn't looked at him at all. I'd walked too loudly on the stairs. My breathing was aggressive. He was building up to something and everyone knew it. Things changed when our cousin visited from the city and saw Mom's destroyed mouth. She pretended everything was normal during dinner, but I saw her taking pictures when she thought no one was looking. 2 days after she left, we had cops at our door. Someone had reported suspected abuse. Dad was calm as he explained that the women in our family had genetic dental problems, and he showed them forged medical records he'd been preparing for years just in case. After the cops left, Dad called a family meeting. Someone in this house contacted outsiders, he said while looking directly at me. That's the ultimate misbehavior. I protested that I hadn't done anything, but he'd already decided I was guilty. 10 teeth, he announced, all at once, tonight. Mom actually gasped out loud, which earned her 2 more teeth for the outburst. That night, they prepared everything while I sat in my room trying not to throw up from fear. 10 teeth would destroy my mouth. I'd look like a monster. I'd never be able to eat normally again. Mom snuck into my room after midnight when Dad was drinking with my brothers. Run, she whispered through her ruined mouth. Take Claire and run now while they're distracted. But Claire was too broken to run. She just sat in her room staring at nothing like she always did. I could hear Dad calling my name from downstairs. My brothers were coming up to get me. Mom was crying and begging them to wait until morning, but Dad said justice couldn't wait. They dragged me down to the living room where the chair was waiting. Dad had the pliers ready, and my brothers took their positions. Open wide, Dad said with a smile that showed all his perfect teeth. This is what happens when women forget their place in this family. Full story on the channel below.